3 years ago, in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, I was looking for a way to help out the victims of the storm. I contacted a parish in Louisiana that had been completely destroyed and was in dire need of assistance. The school district in the area was overwhelmingly grateful for my negligible donation and sent me periodic updates on their progress over the next few years. As I read the shocking facts in their newsletters, the disaster hundreds of miles away seemed to be merely a bad dream. However, this winter, when I witnessed the destruction firsthand and heard real-life stories from several survivors, I realized that these strangers were actual people, and my nightmare was their reality.
We're gonna rise and fight for Chalmette. We're gonna win for maroon and white. We're gonna make our mind a victory. A rainy shine for the wheel of our mind.
I met a lot of great new people here.
You come to Chalmette High, and it's like you know everybody in the school because everybody's so close here at Chalmette High. It's like one big family.
No one passes through St. Bernard Parish. You have to want to come to St. Bernard Parish. There's no interstate. There's no huge highway.
I think the community has changed. I think we've gotten a lot stronger.
On August 23, 2005, Hurricane Katrina developed over the Bahamas. The storm crossed southern Florida as a moderate Category 1 hurricane before strengthening rapidly in the Gulf of Mexico. On August 29th, the storm made its second landfall as a Category 3 hurricane, this time tearing a path through Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. It was declared the most destructive and costliest natural disaster in United States history. The most severe damage occurred just east of New Orleans. The lives of people living in St. Bernard Parish, Louisiana, would never be the same.
I remember for Chalmette, we had a huge football game, and it was the Friday right before Katrina.
All my friends came out. We weren't even expecting anything. Like, we never even knew about the storm. We never even knew a storm was developing or anything.
That Saturday, I was supposed to have my birthday party. Not a birthday party, but like a back-to-school kind of thing.
I was at home, and it wasn't much different than any other storm was, I guess.
But after the football game, we all went out to Cappuccino's. It's a local coffee shop. And they had the news on in there, and all of a sudden there was a warning telling everybody to evacuate.
We were so used to evacuating.
I had to call my friends, and most of my friends were like laughing at me because I was evacuating, and they were not even evacuating yet.
So we just went home the next day, did our normal thing. We just packed a few outfits and evacuated, and we didn't think anything of it. And it turned out it just happened to be one of the biggest storms in history.
When the city issued an immediate evacuation, hundreds of thousands of people rushed to get out of town. However, many poor and elderly people who did not have access to transportation, and others who chose not to leave, remained in the parish. Those who stayed climbed into attics and onto roofs to avoid drowning. In the case of a hurricane, Chalmette High School, one of 4 area high schools in St. Bernard, was designated to serve as a shelter. School supervisors reported to the school in preparation for the storm.
The night of the hurricane came at night, and it just seems like hurricanes always come at night. I was sleeping on the floor in this office, and a fireman knocked at the door and told me that he thought we needed to move back because there was so much glass breaking all around the building. So we moved to the back and got through another few hours, and we kind of thought that that we had gotten through the worst part.
My mom was like, okay, we have to start packing up things. And usually you pack 3 changes of clothes for evacuations, but this time I was sitting there looking at the television screen. I was like, Mom, we have to go. And I took my whole entire wardrobe with me because I was like, I love my clothes. I can't have any of that missing. And I took all my pictures, and so did my mom, and she took all our home videos when we were kids.
I mean, because I was like, we usually just pack like what was the hurricane before this? Before Katrina? Ivan. I packed my whole closet.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I didn't feel like unpacking.
Unpacking your whole closet.
So I just put like, and I was like, that's not going to be a big deal. It's not even as big as Ivan. So I just put like 5 t-shirts and a pair of jeans, and I was all ready to go. And we didn't even bring most of our pictures, all my baby pictures, and my dad's wedding pictures. I had my softball bag, my school bag from school, and like 2 or 3 pairs of clothes, and that was it. Like I said, we brought our school bag because we figured that we would only be a few days.
But then the firemen who were helping us here mentioned to us that there was water in Araby, and Araby is just a community right next to Chalmette, where we are, and that it was rising water. So we started moving people upstairs, got everybody upstairs, and about 15 minutes later, we were looking down the front of school, and down on the street, and the water was just rising. It was just coming in. At that point, all of a sudden, we had like 8 feet of water coming in the building.
As the storm hit New Orleans, winds reached 175 miles per hour. The storm surge destroyed the parish levees, and water from the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain immediately poured into the area. By the time the water had stopped rising, 80% of the parish was underwater.
When we first started the night of the storm, we had probably 250 people come in as looking for the shelter. During the night, though, when the storm came, more and more people were coming, and they were wet and afraid at that point because they were staying in their own houses and were looking for a stronger building.
When we realized how horrible the hurricane was going to be, we packed everything up and we left to go stay in Arkansas.
So we got in the car and we went to my aunt's house. About 20 of my relatives stayed there. It was just in a small house. It was all packed. It was about 5 pets. And my dad and my other dog stayed in the house of Chalmette. And he stayed there, and then when the wind started picking up and it was immediate evacuation, he had to come to Chalmette here with Mr. Warren and Miss Mine.
I think we estimate that by the end of that first day, with people who had come in on their own, people who had been rescued, we probably had about 1,500 people in the building, about 1,000 in the gym and about 500 on the school side of the building. Once we were upstairs and realized that we were really safe, the water had stopped coming up, we weren't going to drown, and that was really a relief to everybody. We realized that we were in pretty much dire straits because we had left a lot of provisions downstairs. We had moved people upstairs to safety, but we didn't think to move all the food, didn't have time to move lots of the food and provisions that we had stored in our cafeteria. So we met as a group and planned a strategy for rationing food for the next, we thought maybe couple of days, but that couple of days ended up being 6 full days.
Each person received only a little individual box of Fruit Loops and 1/3 of a cup of water once or twice a day. Communication was another major dilemma. With no electricity or phone towers, the people were isolated from society.
Talking on the phone didn't work at all. 504 numbers were towers are down.
If we stood in the right spot at 11 o'clock at night on the roof of one of the buildings, then we could get maybe a 30-second phone call in, and then it would cut off. But there really wasn't a lot of communication at that time.
Because all they kept on saying was how devastated everything was and how everything was just gone, and the people that died and stuff. And so not knowing if my dad was okay was a big deal. We had no contact with him. He had a phone, but they had no reception here. We had no clue where he was. We didn't even know he went to Chalmette. We thought he was still home. Then we heard when the water came, and we had no clue where he was. Then we found out, we had a call from him. It was on my cell phone. And I seen Dad, and I was so excited. My best friend was actually probably 15 minutes away from where I was, and I didn't know.
It was kind of tough because we didn't have a lot of supplies. We didn't have a lot of things that we really needed at that time. There was nobody coming to help.
The shelter managed day by day with very little food and water and extreme heat. People came in soaked with marsh water. Most had nothing but the clothes on their backs. When the sun went down, it became so dark that they couldn't even see their hands in front of their faces.
With 1,000 people in a building, or 1,500 people in a building, and no restroom facilities, we were under conditions that were getting worse, hour by hour in terms of health. It was not a good place to be.
The shelter had many elderly people and sick people, including diabetics and a man on dialysis.
But we had one gentleman came to us and told us that he had 24 hours of oxygen left, and we thought that was a pretty good lead time. We figured we could probably get somebody to bring us some oxygen for him. Came back and told us that he had made a mistake. He only had 2 hours of oxygen. And there we were. We were in the middle of an 8-foot lake, toxic lake, and we needed to find oxygen for this guy or he was going to die.
Just when they thought it couldn't get any worse, an oil refinery nearby had a massive oil break, and 1 million gallons of oil was spilled into the hurricane water.
We had a lot of people who were really, they were in bad shape. It was like 110 degrees inside this building. It was August in New Orleans.
And when you opened the windows, you had that toxic smell outside. You really didn't want to have them wide open because it was just starting to bubble and boil, that stench that was in the ground. So it was just really, really a bad, we call it a Katrina smell, that you just had to experience to know what it was like.
The shelter was not in chaos at any time, and we only had one incident where I had to raise my voice. Everybody was trying to do the best they could to keep their head. They knew, I think, that we were trying to help them.
And most people were just grateful to be in a safe place, so that was okay. They stayed calm. There was a lot of sadness, but they stayed calm. They knew that we were here to help them, and they followed our lead and our guidelines. We were, lots of tears, but that was okay.
The Chalmette faculty arranged for boats to come rescue the people. But their plan was terminated when the National Guard turned the boats away. Finally, after 6 long days, everyone at the Chalmette shelter was taken to dry land. When the water receded, the people were allowed to return to the parish. What they found was complete devastation.
Before the hurricane, there were 65,000 people living in the community. They had 25,000 homes and churches and businesses. And out of those 25,000 homes and churches and businesses, only 5 did not get flooded. So everything was totally destroyed. Everybody had to leave the parish. You had to pass through checkpoints when you tried to come back in, and it was only after they let you come back that you could get in.
I didn't even know where I was. It looked totally different. I didn't even know if it was my house. I didn't even recognize it. When you walked in the houses, stuff that was from the attic was in my room. My room was in the living room. The living room was in our rooms. The kitchen was in my mom and dad's room. The whole house, it looked like a tornado hit it. Everything was switched. I had 14 feet of water.
So I used to live in the swampy area of the parish where there was a bayou in front of my house and everything. Mm-hmm. And so it always used to flood, and we were on pylons, so we were used to that.
You were on pylons?
Yeah, it's stilts. So we're always ready for it, I guess.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It flooded a lot.
You just thought you were safe because you were on the pylons.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, my house was
still
17
feet
off the ground. It was lifted off the slab. We don't know. It was just gone.
Yeah, the houses itself just moved.
Yeah, there were a bunch of houses. The only thing left at my house was the slab,
and the house was
in the stairs.
4 blocks down.
But when we seen my house, because my house wasn't there anymore, when we seen what was left of my house, it was just I didn't even want to walk to where my house was. I just kind of stood in the car and just cried. It was all I can do because the house wasn't there at all. It was just completely gone.
It's just a weight is just lifted on you. You had nothing. You have some clothes on your back and that's it. And we had at least I was grateful to have kind people that lived next to me. And they gave me some of their clothes, and they let me hang out with them and stuff, and I had no clue who anybody was there.
I got split up from my mom, and my stepdad and my dad, because they wanted to stay here and get the house rebuilt, but they didn't want me to go through any of the rebuilding process with them. They wanted me to still get an education. So I went with my grandparents and we moved to Colorado for a year.
For months after the storm, the parish remained without electricity, water, or sewage. The media reported that people wouldn't be allowed to live in St. Bernard for another year, and schools wouldn't open for at least another 2 years. With no school system, St. Bernard remained deserted.
And as soon as that was said, Ms. Voce, who's our superintendent, said, no, we're not going to wait that long. We'll just have to do it ourselves.
Mrs. Voce took it upon herself to start a school. She worked with a private contractor, and on November 14, 2005, 3 months after Katrina, school resumed. The 14 schools that had previously made up the St. Bernard School District were combined into one, St. Bernard Unified School. The school served children in kindergarten through 12th grade at the Chalmette High campus. On the first day, 50 students were expected, but 334 showed up. Classes took place in portable classrooms and in a portion of the second floor of Chalmette that was occupiable. Many students drove hours every day to attend.
We had to wait in Baton Rouge. I went to school in Baton Rouge, and we made a lot of good friends. And when we came back to Chalmette, we were so happy. Like, we got an old house where I lived there from since I was born. We rebuilt it, and that's where we live in today.
It was great, actually, just seeing everybody. I came the first week. I didn't come the first day. I wasn't here the first day. I was here the third or fourth day, and it was just wonderful. Because when you come, it wasn't about nobody said, I don't know, it wasn't about the hurricane. Everybody didn't talk about it. It was just a commonplace. Everybody was in the same situation. At my other school that I went to, after, before, everybody knew me as the New Orleans girl. Everybody asked me about everything. But down here, everybody was in the same boat, so it didn't really matter.
What happened, though, since the progress was so slow at first in terms of the parish being able to accommodate citizens to move back, many of the citizens have moved away. But the kids wanted to come back to their schools in St. Bernard Parish, and we're very grateful when they did return that the bulk of the teachers we were able to rehire were their teachers from their former schools. So we were truly a faculty blend of 14 different faculties, and it was wonderful for the kids to be able to see that.
And when you go back to something that's so familiar to home, it's just, I don't know, it's undescribable, I guess you could say, because seeing so many people that you once knew, you're like, oh my God, I know you once again. I get to see you after the storm.
So they had to have a place. So the superintendent, y'all met Ms. Voce. Ms. Voce managed to finagle some trailers, and she just got them. She knew how we were going to pay for them. But a lot of the teachers came back and lived in trailers. We had sites all over the parish at different schools. This is one that's still left, and mine is about 4 trailers in. And that's what happened. This whole parish was like this. This is what most of them are.
Oh, this is what most of them are for a whole family?
Yes. Now, I want you to think about a family living in this with 5 kids.
Family of 7, yeah. 2 parents and
Think
7.
about it. It's horrible.
We lived in trailers, and there wasn't that much room. There were very limited space. But in our gutted houses, it was just open, so we would just sit and talk, and it was all we had to do. So that's what we did.
It took an hour to go to the grocery store. It took an hour to go get anything. It wasn't like you had anything at your disposal, because there was nothing.
3 years later, St. Bernard is still rebuilding. After the hurricane, many people began lives in other places and never returned. The school district went from 14 schools to 8 and plans to remain that way. Hundreds of businesses are gone. Neighborhoods that were once crowded with people remain bare. Houses that have not been occupied for years wait to be destroyed.
But if you look as you drive along here, you'll have a house that has a post box, which means that there's somebody there, and then you'll have houses that look like somebody's in them, but if you look in the house, there's nobody there. Those families were broken up, and an example of that is our school board secretary. She had 9 houses within a 4-block area with herself and her children and their children. And those people wound up in Virginia, in Texas, in Baton Rouge. And they used to get together all the time. Now they don't see each other.
It seems as if the neighborhoods are more dead, and it's kind of lifeless almost, and it's kind of sad to say, but it's not a lot going on here anymore.
I finished paying for my house in July. Okay, I was in that house for 30 years. So in July of 2005, I paid for my house. I expected to live there for the rest of my life, die there, you know, maybe have to fix it up a little bit, that type of thing, but that was my house. Okay, I'll own my house again when I'm 93. So right now, if I had a heart attack right now, it would take about 30 minutes to get me to the hospital in New Orleans, okay? And that would be as if an ambulance was pretty close by.
We're moving along rather slowly, but we're moving along, and any kind of progress, I think, is good.
The community's changed. It's going to take a long time for it to get back to a community like it was before.
I think I changed in a good way because I realized what I got and what I have to cherish. And I think I appreciate more, like a lot of things more. I appreciate like seeing all my friends. I appreciate being in St. Bernard, like this great place. And like just going to like a grocery store and seeing like everybody you know there. Like in Baton Rouge, you walked in, nobody said hello to you. Like you see nobody. But when you come to Chalmette, you see everybody you know, everywhere. And you always know a story behind that person's last name.
You know, I appreciate people, the volunteers who have done things to help us, who don't know us. These people don't know us, and they're willing to work hard. They're willing to come and do anything. And I mean anything we asked, we could have gotten people to do for us. And, you know, I really didn't. I would have been the first person to send a check. You need $10, $20, $100, sure, I'll send a check. But to give you time, to do the effort, to physically come, that means a lot more to all of us who were involved in Katrina.
I think of the bright side of Katrina, because if it wasn't for it, I wouldn't have met a lot of people that I know today.
I mean, everything means so much more. Like, you don't take as much for granted. And like knowing like that you could lose everything in like a matter of minutes definitely changed the way I think about stuff.
There are no physical possessions that are left. You know, everything physically you had was gone. You got out with what was on your back. But the relationships you had with people, you know, just the idea of, I think we enjoy each other much more. We have a more quality in our relationships, let's put it that way.
Katrina definitely made me appreciate things a lot more. You know, after Katrina, you just don't have the things that you were used to having every day. Like, for instance, seeing my family every day. I couldn't see my family every day after Katrina. I couldn't see my mom. I couldn't tell her I loved her every day. After Katrina, we got that, and it just shows how much it showed me how much I really do appreciate those things.
Your friends will not let you down.
Chalmette's done a lot since we've had Katrina hit, so I give us some props, man. St. Bernard's rebuilding, and we're coming back full and strong, so there's no stopping us now.
It's these people who have risen to the challenge and taken control at a time of chaos and apprehension, who have lost homes, friends, and all of their possessions, but continue to smile every day, who have come together after a disaster to rebuild a community. It's these people who wake up every morning not lamenting what they've lost, but appreciating what they have.